welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, also on Comcast, Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin. We're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. On the radio in the Bloomfield area as well, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link or join us on a small player on our homepage or on our social media, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. And as always, joining me from her home studio in the city of Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
So, Tyler, is that what we're doing from now on, just streaming this on our own Facebook page?
Yes, yeah, it seems like that's been the most viable thing for us as of late, is to just go on our page. There's been some issues with us on the technical side on the back end with connecting to other Facebook pages and various things. So we're going to do some workarounds and try to get back to getting other pages back involved with us as much as we can. But for the time being, we are sticking to our Facebook pages, Civic Center TV 15 and Lakes FM.
Well, a happy Monday to you and everyone out there.
Yes, yes, happy Monday to you too.
The weekends go by so darn fast.
They really do. Yes, this weekend flew by. It had ended as quickly as it started. It definitely still feels like the end of the day on Friday, and I'm looking forward to the next one already.
And it's only Monday at 10 a.m.
It's not even started yet.
Well, but it's going to be a beautiful day. Saturday was nice. Kind of gave you that little bit of a spring gardening bug for all of us that have yards. Our lawn is finally mowed. I picked up a few ferns, but I didn't make it to the farmer's market this weekend to get the flowers that I wanted.
That's unfortunate, but you know, the great thing about it is it's the start of that season, so there's going to be plenty more weekends and plenty of more opportunities to get those plants and get them into your garden and start that process. As we now looks like we're going to have a little more, I don't want to say it too loudly, but a little more consistently nice spring and summery weather. So I think it's about that time where your gardens are finally going to be like, okay, we can start growing now.
Yeah, I mean, it is the middle of May, but I remember Dr. Tweel was talking about the plant outside of his window. It blooms like once a year for like a week, and then we had that snow, so it killed it. That's what happened to the tree out in front of our house. I remember planting it. It was small, and now it's grown into this big, beautiful tree. Once a year, it blooms, and we got a couple blooms out of it, but that snow just did away with it. So this year our tree just didn't look as pretty as it has in years past. It's disappointing because it's that once a year bloom that you look forward to, and the smell is always amazing.
Yeah, it's a thing you look forward to each and every year, and the same thing kind of happens at my dad's. He's got a crabapple tree out in front of his yard, in his front yard, and it blooms every year. Usually right around this time. This year actually bloomed kind of early, and it smelled great out there. And then the snow and the cold weather came through, and it survived through that, and it still maintained itself for another few days. But then it quickly had a very swift end to its bloom, and all the leaves had fallen.
So this past weekend, I took Trixie Dixie to get her puppuccino. Oh,
yeah, don't say it too loud. They're watching.
I know. I'm like, is she upstairs? She knows the word, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And so, because she really like irritates and bugs you until she goes to get her little PC, as we say without actually saying it out loud. And so I had to take her to the Starbucks, like Woodward and 13 Mile, because all the Starbucks around us with drive-throughs are closed on Saturdays until 9:30. Well, this dog wakes up at 6:37. Oh, she's not waiting until 9:30 for her PC.
Oh no.
So we go down there, and then on my way back, I saw a plant sale, and so they had these big, beautiful ferns, and they were only like, I don't know, $10. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pick some up. Well, I was in the smart car, so I was like, for some reason I got like 3, and I was like, oh, they'll fit. And then I'm like, well, so I took a picture of Trixie, and it's just like ferns everywhere and her little face sticking through. Like, Mom, what are you doing? They cannot fit in this car with me, because Trixie's like 70 pounds now.
Right.
But I didn't want to risk like going all the way home to switch cars to come back, because they could have been gone.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you got to take what you can get, take the risk. You know what? Trixie can take it. She'll deal with it for a little while. If anything, it'll be a little fun for her to stick her head back and forth through the ferns, and it's something different for her to keep her engaged on the car ride home. But glad it worked out for you at least.
She kind of looked like E.T., sticking her head through like E.T. with all the stuffed animals.
Yeah. And
you just see this brown head poking through the green ferns, but we made it home. And they survived somewhat. They only lost like a few of their branches.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's something you expect anyway, even without having a 70-pound dog in with them as well. So that's a pretty good outcome, Ron.
Right, look at that. See, look at your blessings. Hey, we want to let everyone know this is the last day for the Ford Field Vaccination Clinic. So if you've been thinking about getting vaccinated, you haven't done it yet, today could be the day for you to go down and get it. I really have found the numbers pretty fascinating in this, Tyler. So once again, the federally operated COVID-19 max vaccination clinic inside Ford Field, ending tonight, 8 weeks after it set out to vaccinate hundreds of thousands of Michigan residents. So in its final days, the clinic also is a spot where the newest vaccine eligibility group, children ages 12 to 15, can be inoculated with their first dose of the 2-shot Pfizer vaccine. So anyone who gets the first shot today, you can receive your second dose at a Meijer, a local pharmacy, a health department, or any other COVID-19 provider. Because I know there have been concerns about that. What about if I get one shot, but I still need my second one? So the clinic, home to the Detroit Lions, going to be administering the Pfizer as well as the Johnson & Johnson until 8:30 tonight. Walk-ins, by the way, are welcome. They make it extremely easy. You park right there, free parking across the street. You go in, you're in and out within usually within a half hour, because they do make you wait, sit down and wait that 15, 20 minutes, make sure you don't have an allergic reaction. So according to Protect Michigan Commission research, the site and its mobile vaccine clinics have administered 272,264 vaccine doses through this last Thursday. Here's where the numbers really get interesting to me, Tyler. Oakland County residents received the most doses at just under 119,000. That's followed by Wayne County residents, excluding Detroit, 64,000. Macomb County residents registered about 30,500 doses. Washtenaw County, about 22,000. Detroiters coming in at just about 20,000 of those doses. Now, we do know that a lot of Detroit residents also went to the TCF Center as well. So as of Friday, 55.7% of Michiganders ages 16 and older have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. That's according to the state's dashboard. But we do know that here in Oakland County, we're already over that 60% threshold that the governor has set here in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the effect of some of these mass vaccination sites coming to their end, particularly Ford Field, will have on the process, as more individual vaccination sites have popped up in many local localities, and definitely has become more streamlined at drugstores such as CVS and Walgreens and such. But these sites were convenient for people. People would go to them, and it's just, I think it's at the point now where the reason we don't see these getting extended is because that rush to go get the vaccines at these mass sites hasn't maybe been as strong as it had been initially, and we're far enough along now where people that are going to trickle in are going to trickle in locally. So hopefully that is the case here, and this won't have much of a big impact. As it says in this article, as of Friday, about 55%, we're just pushing that 60% threshold, have gotten at least one dose of the 2 doses, or have been fully vaccinated with 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson. So we're well along in that race to 70%.
And you know what? Make it a day. Go to Detroit, get your shot. It's free parking. Take the time, walk over to a restaurant, have some lunch, have some dinner, and then, go on and, enjoy Detroit, because for so many people, they really haven't been there throughout the COVID crisis. So free parking is always a good thing when it comes to Detroit because it can get expensive down there. Plus, it's secure and safe parking, which is also very important.
Yes. Yeah, and I know a handful of people that have gotten their vaccinations, either one or both of their vaccinations down at Ford Field. It's been a very smooth process. They had no issues with it. And like you said, as we're starting to see things open back up with the regulations being somewhat relaxed as we get further along in the MyVac to normal or Vax to normal plan here in Michigan, you have an opportunity to go down and explore the city of Detroit and shop local and support local businesses as they're coming back out of this pandemic. And do your part to help the community by getting vaccinated. Also do your part to help the community by helping a lot of these small businesses, these restaurants and retails kickstart their post-pandemic future.
Well, Tyler, the big question really over the weekend and still today, to mask or not to mask, because those CDC guidelines, a little bit confusing. So the state of Michigan did release specifics about how businesses must enforce the latest version of the state's mask mandate, which started at 9 o'clock on Saturday. The new mandate allows all fully vaccinated people, which means they are 2 weeks removed from their first and final shot, to ditch their mask in most outdoor and indoor spaces. So final shot, by the way. So if you've had the Pfizer or the Moderna, 2 weeks after your last shot, of course, the Johnson & Johnson is just the one shot, so 2 weeks following that one. Businesses must make a good faith effort to make sure unvaccinated people wear masks. That's according to the order. So what is a good faith effort, you ask? A business can do any of three options. Put up signs to say unvaccinated people must still wear masks, ask customers if they are vaccinated, or simply require everybody to wear a mask. Now, other components of the health order, like capacity restrictions and also those time limits for the restaurants and the bars, they still remain unchanged at this time. And here's another thing I have not heard a lot of people talking about. The changes in the mask mandate don't impact employees. So they're still required to follow the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration rules. So MIOSHA rules, they haven't been relaxed yet to allow vaccinated people to unmask, but state officials said they're considering tweaking those rules as well in the coming days. So much confusion here in the state of Michigan, because we're one of, I think, 22 states that still has some type of mask mandate in place, and it is really confusing for not only the people but for the businesses as well.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people have questions primarily about how do you navigate the situation where essentially the entire population is on the honor system, because you can't make somebody prove that they have been vaccinated. You're asking that, at best asking them, hey, have you been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and hoping that they are giving you an honest response, which then leads some people that have been questioning mask mandates from the start, particularly those on the GOP side of on the Republican and GOP side of the aisle, who have been saying we should just have had a personal responsibility model and an honor system model from the start. It leaves them asking, well, if this is what we're doing now when we aren't even at that 70% threshold, why were we doing that altogether? And those on the other side of the aisle, and really across the aisle altogether, are asking, well, if we've been waiting for that 70% threshold to fully reopen and get back to normal, and it's not been safe to go out and have these kinds of interactions, why do we have these mask mandates being lifted before we're at that spot? In the case of these businesses, they're put in a really tough spot, like they were earlier on in the pandemic, at least initially, when they were left to be somewhat the enforcement of mask mandates as people were getting used to doing that. Now they have to figure out a way where really their best foot forward in these three options from MIOSHA is to simply just continue to require masks until we're out of the pandemic. But a lot of places aren't going to do that because they're trying to get people to come back to their business so they can kickstart their numbers after having a really tough couple of years.
So at the end of the day, just a reminder to everyone out there, just be nice, be kind. I feel like so many of the businesses and the employees are once again caught kind of in the middle of this because no one's talking about the enforcement side. So to everyone, please just be kind to one another as we all try to continue to work through this and figure it out. Hey, with that, the Michigan High School Athletic Association The executive director, Mark Ewell, announced outdoor sports athletes, coaches, and staff do not need to wear masks. Fully vaccinated individuals involved in indoor sports are no longer required to use a face covering. Weekly testing of those participating in spring sports continues until May 31st. At that point, vaccinated players are going to be exempt. So spectator limits at spring outdoor events are going to remain in place at the time being. Today, Catholic League baseball tournament semifinals get underway at Comerica Park. Detroit Catholic Central, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, taking the field at 10 a.m., and they will be doing so without mask. So it is a little bit of a sign that we're starting to get back to normal, but of course, we're still trying to figure this out. We should point out to the CDC on their guidelines when it comes to schools. At this point in time, they are still requiring schools for the remainder of the school year to require the kids to wear a mask and be socially distanced.
Yeah, and Mark Ewell and the MHSAA have been pretty adamant from the onset that they're going to follow in the footsteps of the rules of the state of Michigan, and also keep in mind the CDC's guidelines as well in terms of preventing the spread of COVID-19. The good thing at this point is that we are approaching playoff season. There are fewer teams that are going to be continuing to play in their respective sports, and the vast majority of the spring sports in MHSAA's sports schedule are outdoors and relatively distant if you look at softball, if you look at baseball, if you look at track and field. So being able to relax some of these limitations, these restrictions, these protocols, such as testing for those that are vaccinated and continuing them as a precaution for those that are not vaccinated, is really putting your best foot forward to continue to keep the kids safe, keep the game moving forward, but also bring some things back to a semblance of normalcy that I think satisfies everybody involved.
It's confusing times, but really? We're here to help you continue to try to navigate it. For the latest headlines, go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and there you'll find the latest headlines, along with direct links to the resources, the state of Michigan, the CDC, so you can try to read some of these orders in their entirety for yourself. With that, we have a great show ahead for you here on this Monday to start off the week. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. That's next here on the Megacast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful, because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us here on this Monday morning on the Megacast. Hopefully, as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis, some of our communities are rebuilding and realigning. And if anything, throughout this pandemic, it's taught us to not only think outside the box, but also about collaboration. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Dustin McClellan. He's the founder and CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. Dustin, great to have you on with us again.
Hi, Ronnie. So great to be back with you and Tyler. Look forward to our discussion today.
I was talking about Pontiac over the weekend with someone and explaining about your foundation and the great work that you are attempting and hoping to be able to do to really lift the city of Pontiac. For those not familiar, tell us more about your foundation.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes, the Pontiac Community Foundation was founded in 2018 with a mission to engage philanthropy, leadership, and collaboration to tackle Pontiac's most pressing issues. We're really creating a new model for philanthropy in Pontiac, particularly as a community foundation, because not only are we seen in the community as an entity that awards grants and supports financially, but we're also filling a critical civic leadership gap in the community. And so we know that Pontiac has had many challenges throughout the years, many of them due to capacity, just limited resources and leadership ability. And so we oftentimes find ourselves being looked to in the community as someone that can take the lead, take the charge, fill in those gaps that civically or other entities can't fill. And we're just so grateful that we're able to provide that leadership to our community.
So, Dustin, you are the founder and CEO. What made you want to tackle this?
That's a great question. I was born and raised in the city of Pontiac and, experienced many of the challenges that everyday residents face now. When I was a child, I grew up in a single parent home, experienced all the issues of poverty and the challenges that are in a city like Pontiac. And at 7 years old, a local nonprofit, the Kids Club, was heavily influential in my life, provided me with a mentor, provided after school programming and weekend programming. And I later became director of that very entity, the Power Company Kids Club, for 8 years. It was during that time.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, it was during that time working very intimately with children and families that I saw these generational systemic issues that we faced in Pontiac for many years. And so I, with a team of others, said, hey, let's find out what can be the vehicle of change in the city of Pontiac. And we landed on the community foundation model.
And since you've started, how has it been going? Because just as you're getting up, you're getting your feet wet, you're getting some traction, the pandemic hits.
Yeah, what a moment, right? For us, we really felt like that was our coming of age moment. And we saw, as tragic as it was, the pandemic as an opportunity. And so that's when we began to work collaboratively with other nonprofits, other organizations, our municipality, Oakland County government, to say, how are we going to meet the needs of residents and businesses and community leaders during the midst of the pandemic. And so we started the My COVID Response entity with other partners. We started the Center for Pontiac Entrepreneurship to provide critical capital and education relief to entities. We enacted so many things during the pandemic that we're continuing today, and others now, such as our task force on racial health and equities. That was something that we started last year, pulling together local electeds and other leaders saying, hey, we know there are racial challenges that we're dealing with. We know there are now health challenges we're dealing with. We know that there's a lot of talk out there. But let's come together and see what those challenges really are in Pontiac and what are some solutions that we together can work on. So, for many, I know that it was a deeply challenging time, but for us, we really sought to seize the opportunity so that we can continue making a difference in Pontiac.
Dustin McClellan with us here on the Megacast. He's the founder, CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. And I think one of the really big good things, a silver lining to come out of the crisis, is it really did force people to think outside the box. Before, people would say, we can't do that. We've never done that. There's no way that could happen. And because of COVID-19, we've all had to think and act differently. And some of those things I think are going to stay with us post-pandemic. But when we're talking about some of these programs, I know there's the rental assistance program. Is that going to stay in place? Where do things stand with that right now?
Yeah, Ronnie, I don't think that we have really seen the totality of the economic effects on the community yet. I think some of us are feeling like today's a new day. We've got some new regulations in terms of masks. We've had, summer seems to be here all of a sudden, but these effects are going to continue for quite some time, especially as we see moratoriums lifted on evictions, as we see different stipulations come in place in terms of unemployment assistance. And so it's going to be imperative that rental assistance, utility assistance, small business assistance, even workforce development programs, because I was just talking with one of our restaurant owners this weekend, and he says business is booming, but we just can't find people that want to work in our establishment. So we've got a lot of work to do to now work on the backside of the pandemic and to meet the needs, particularly in our business community and particularly in urban communities like Pontiac.
So with that, Dustin, because you wonder too, you understand why some employees are saying, I'm not going to work because I would make the same or less if I went to work
Yes.
40 hours a week. So it seems like it is highlighting some of these lower wage jobs that are out there, but there are some great jobs that are out there as well. It's a matter of trying to get some of the people trained. And we know a lot of times there are hurdles with trying to get people that maybe had addictions or felonies. Is that part of some of the solutions you're trying to even talk about at this point? Like, how do we bridge these gaps that, put the businesses in this situation, but also put some of our residents in the position where they are in life?
Absolutely. For people that have not historically been structurally employed, you take a year or a year and a half off of any any workforce, now you're really behind the 8 ball. And so there are several groups in Pontiac that are really working to meet this need, and we're excited to be working with them. Groups like the Dream Center that is working to train and provide skills development for those that have not been structurally employed, even providing wraparound services like transportation and childcare that are barriers to employment. Groups like the Talent Development Coalition that's working particularly in the skilled trades and in construction to help young folks get the adequate training they need, hands-on skills development, partner with construction companies that are looking for those types of workers. And so, and to your point earlier, people are being innovative and creative and trying to work diligently to not only provide programming and workforce development, but also meet the needs of businesses in the community.
Yeah, transportation is so key, especially in Oakland County, because a lot of places the bus doesn't go where it needs to go. And if you don't have a car, look how expensive it is to get a car, or if you're sharing a car in a family. So one of the good things, we're talking about these issues, and hopefully some of the companies are realizing it and trying to work with the employees to get them there and get them there on time. We're talking about Dustin McClellan. He's the founder and CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. One of the other things that your organization has going on, I think is awesome and great for our entire community, is the Small Business Micro Grant Program. This is, it really is a way to kind of shift and get more people involved in being small business owners.
Absolutely. This is the first of 2 rounds of granting we're going to be doing this year for small businesses in Pontiac. And we've made it specific to either small businesses that are headquartered in Pontiac, or perhaps residents in Pontiac that have small businesses elsewhere. And in just 7 days, we had 82 applicants, was a report I got, for these small business grants that we're still dubbing this first round as COVID relief. And it is just amazing, not only the need that our small businesses are still facing, but the opportunity we really see, particularly now that we're gathering all of this rich data, creating these relationships, and now we can circle back with these entrepreneurs and say, hey, how else can we support you? How else can we help get the word out on what you're doing? How else can we make sure the community and others at large, even outside of Pontiac, are aware of these incredible businesses that are working diligently, working very hard, trying to stay afloat, and hopefully now that we're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we'll continue to be vibrant businesses in our community.
So with that, Dustin, what types of small businesses are you hoping to attract to the city of Pontiac long term?
Absolutely. Yeah, we, definitely still need many retail outlets in Pontiac. Folks in the community will tell you that they do have to go elsewhere to do their basic shopping. And so we feel that downtown is prime for that. And there are other corridors in Pontiac that are prime for that. Certainly restaurants, although there are challenges right now, we still feel like we definitely need to support and sustain the establishments we do have and invite other restaurants to the area. And I'll just say this because it's always a hot topic in Pontiac. Pontiac's ready and deeply desires a grocery store. And we don't have a quality, affordable grocery store within the city limits. And so that's something we're working on behind the scenes, having courageous conversations about, and hopefully we'll move the needle on that as well.
That's so important, and we see that in so many urban areas. The city of Detroit went through that, and they're still struggling trying to get some of those grocery stores in the neighborhood areas.
It's true.
Not just that downtown area. We're talking about Dustin McClellan here on the Megacast. He's the founder CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. And with that, I feel like Pontiac had some momentum going in that downtown area. And then it's like it kind of halted. Now we're starting to see more empty storefronts in the downtown area. But I think one of the good things is the Phoenix Center deal. There's at least some deal. I don't know what the future of the Phoenix Center is going to look like, but at least it's out of a legal dispute.
Yeah, at this point, there is an agreement that has been finalized with the new owners of the adjacent towers to the Phoenix Center. And they had some perpetual rights to the Phoenix Center that are hopefully going to allow for some new development, some urban renewal. I know that there's leasing available even in those two towers that are joining the Phoenix Center. And so our hope that is that this black eye is moving from Pontiac. There are ongoing discussions with the county, with the city, with MDOT about reorienting the Woodward Loop. And so over the next couple of years, we'll be having that discussion as a community, and the dollars are there from MDOT to support that. And so now it will be up to the residents and our elected officials to determine, is this something we really want, and what will be our course of action?
That's been so talked about throughout the years, and it does get confusing. Yes. When you go into Pontiac. I used to volunteer with an animal group there, Animal Care Network, and it didn't matter how many times I was out, I would always get confused and lost in the neighborhoods of Pontiac. And
it's true.
It's like, come on. I'm like, I know I've been lost here before. But with that, I still like the Phoenix Center. It's so unique. It Absolutely. Just hasn't been utilized in so many years. So it's going to be interesting to see how the entire area changes, not just with the M1 concourse, but United Wholesale Mortgage. They just announced that they're going to use part of their sports complex to allow for a community center. Your thoughts on that?
Well, definitely excited about that. One of the other hot button issues in Pontiac has been youth recreation. And our council and mayor has kind of gone back and forth on what's the best course of action. We have millage dollars available to support that, but currently do not have a facility for youth recreation. And so I'm thrilled that United Wholesale is here in Pontiac, that they're hiring and employing so many people. And this recreation center will be wonderful, this community center. And it's also been announced that it will be free to Pontiac residents. And so we look forward to the opportunity to collaborate with them and make sure that as many residents as possible have the opportunity to recreate there.
So have you been working on that deal at all?
I have not been involved in that deal.
It is, but it is something that really looks like it's going to help so many of the kids there in the city of Pontiac. There's been a big effort to clean up the parks and make them more attractive for some of the kids, but to have that community center to be able to go, and especially in the wintertime, it's a safe place for kids. I think it's really going to mean a lot to the community. Again, we're talking with Dustin McClellan. He's the founder and CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. With that, I have to ask, you guys have so many things going on, juggling so many balls. Anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. And I'll just say this, we've got elections coming up in Pontiac. And this year, they're really hot button elections and heavily contested at this moment. So civic engagement is on our radar, making sure that Pontiac residents get out and vote, understand the issues and the candidates that are here. And we have the three lowest voter turnout precincts in the state. Wow. And so part of our challenge is to make sure that people just get out and vote and are active and exercise their right as citizens to voice themselves through a vote at the ballot box.
And why do you think that it's such lower turnout there in Pontiac?
Yeah, there's so many reasons. We don't have time to get into that. But, I think not only transportation, which we've talked about, not only just education on the value of it and the candidates themselves, but in a distressed community like Pontiac, many people feel like their vote doesn't matter. And so we've got to really encourage people that your vote does matter. Here's why, and here are the policies that are affected, and here are the seats that are affected, and here's what happens when you do elect good people that practice good governance. And so that's part of our role as a community organization, community leader, because we know that when we elect the right people, when we get good business in town, it improves our tax base, we can have better city services, all of those things that we all hope for in the places that we live, work, and play.
So, Dustin, with the M1 Concourse, as well as United Wholesale Mortgage, we know Amazon is moving in as well.
Yes.
Do you think that's going to help turn Pontiac around and attract more businesses to the area?
I think so. I think when you see three major players like the three entities you identified come to a city like Pontiac, it definitely draws attention to other investors and businesses. And so we are seeing that right now. We're seeing lots of people come into town and prospect and see what opportunities are here. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about these opportunities. We're excited about post-COVID and what that means for investment. We're excited about even post-election season and what that means for investment. So as we often talk, Ronnie, I think Pontiac is primed for success. We're going to continue to do our part and believe that the best is yet ahead for us and for the residents here.
Well, and we need to see Pontiac thrive for it strengthens our entire communities, because while there may be a border, the border doesn't exist for all of us that live in this community. And so the stronger Pontiac is, that makes Bloomfield stronger. It makes Kegel stronger, West Bloomfield. So thank you again for taking on this challenge. It's absolutely a big challenge. And I think Pontiac has been waiting for someone like you to come in and champion this effort. So Dustin McClellan, he's the founder CEO for the Pontiac Community Foundation. How can people find out more?
Yeah, you can head to our website, PontiacCommunityFoundation.org. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd love to get you plugged in and get you more information on what we're all about.
And I know that you're still pretty small, but do you take on volunteers or interns at all?
Absolutely. We do take on volunteers and interns. We have a growing team and staff, which we're excited about. And we welcome everyone.
Wow, that's great to hear. Thank you again for your time, Dustin. We always appreciate it. And best of luck in all the projects that you have underway there in the city of Pontiac.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Dustin McClellan, founder, CEO, Pontiac Community Foundation. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. And then when we come back, we'll continue on another controversial issue, and that has to do with the Enbridge pipeline. That's next here on the Megacast.
In times like these, we have to believe in each other.
And we believe that you'll do the right thing
when it comes to stopping the spread of COVID.
Follow the 3 W's.
Wear a mask.
Wash your hands. Watch your distance.
And when it's your turn to get the vaccine, take your shot.
It all comes down to the golden rule.
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
We're so close, Michigan.
We can do this together.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. As always, I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Tyler Keefe holding things down for us back there at Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield. You can always catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live. Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Catch us on Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff, or watch us on Facebook. We are live streaming on our social media page. You know, for so many of us, we've been watching the headlines regarding the Enbridge and the pipeline here in the Mackinac area. Last week, I believe it was, the governor had said no more. However, Enbridge went ahead and is ignoring the governor's mandate that they stop production. To talk more, let's bring in Dave Holtz. He's the spokesperson for Oil and Water Don't Mix. Dave, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. And apologies, I'm in my car because my internet went down at home.
No apologies needed. We have all been there at some point in time throughout this pandemic. It really does put a little panic in you, though, doesn't it?
Well, the timing was like exquisite. It was like right at the point of time when I needed it.
Well, we appreciate you, though, thinking on your feet and running outside to your car. So thank you again. Bring us up to speed, because for some of us, this gets to be a little bit of a complicated issue, because this pipeline has been around, since the 50s?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, is just what is Line 5 and how did it get there? So it has been since 1953, and it really carries oil from the Alberta tar sands in Canada through the western provinces to Superior, Wisconsin, and then there's a big Enbridge distribution center there, and that's where Line 5 continues through the UP, through the Straits of Mackinac, all the way through the Lower Peninsula to the St. Clair River, and then to Sarnia, where about 80% of the product in Line 5 goes to a refinery there. So it has been there, and really it was the big Enbridge oil spill in 2010 along the Kalamazoo River that first had folks, thinking about oil pipelines in Michigan. And there was a report done shortly after that, a couple years after that, called Sunken Hazard. And that is what really raised awareness of this dangerous pipeline in the Straits.
So let's talk about the legal dispute. Where do things stand? The governor is basically telling Enbridge, you need to stop. However, Enbridge is saying, no, this is a federal issue, not a state issue.
Right. And where it stands now is when the governor in November revoked the easement agreement with Enbridge that allowed them to operate the pipeline in the Straits since 1953. This is an agreement they've been saying they have been upholding since 1953. The governor asked Enbridge to spend until May 12th, 180 days, with an orderly decommissioning. And instead, what Enbridge did was put $1 million in TV ads up, organized the Canadian government on its behalf, and then went into federal court with the argument that the state doesn't have jurisdiction, which is a pretty unique argument since Enbridge has been saying the state does have jurisdiction since 1953 in the Straits of Mackinac. So what we're waiting for really is for a ruling from a federal judge in the Western District of Michigan, federal court, on whether the case of decommissioning Line 5 belongs, as the governor believes, in a state court because it's a state issue, or whether it belongs in federal court.
We're talking with David Holtz. He's a spokesperson for Oil and Water Don't Mix. And Dave, can I have you tell us more about your organization?
Sure. Well, I mentioned that this report came out called Sunken Hazard. That was in 2012. And a lot of folks that are in the big impact area up near the tip of the mitt, so to speak, and the Upper Peninsula got together shortly after that report came out and organized sort of a coalition that really began with maybe a handful of people and has now grown to 97 organizations, businesses, 5 tribes, and about 70,000 individuals who support the coalition. And we have really one goal. We exist to get rid of oil pipelines in the Great Lakes, get rid of Line 5, shut it down.
And so with this, is this more of a concern about the age of the pipelines as well?
Well, I think the concern is just having oil pipelines in the Great Lakes doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think anyone would argue that even Enbridge, if they were proposing a new pipeline to put it in the heart of the Great Lakes, what the University of Michigan has called the most dangerous place for an oil spill in the Great Lakes, the Straits of Mackinac. So, we just don't want oil pipelines in the Great Lakes, and for good reason. That same University of Michigan study shows that if there was a worst case scenario oil spill, 23 million gallons flow through that pipeline every day. 700 miles of Great Lakes coast could be impacted. Drinking water for many communities, including, in fact, they would have to evacuate Mackinac Island probably because the spill takes forever to clean up, and then it's never cleaned up entirely. So it would halt shipping through the Straits of Mackinac. It's a major shipping area. It would be a major hit on the economy. The estimate is around $45 billion in GDP if it were closed for 14 days.
So basically, for you and members of your organization, you're anticipating, hey, a disaster could happen. Let's make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's nearly 70 years old. The major motivation for the governor taking the action she did is because in that easement agreement with the state, there are conditions that Enbridge is required to follow operating the pipeline. The state has determined that there have been consistent and uncurable violations of those conditions, everything ranging from failing to maintain protective coatings on the pipeline to there's supposed to be anchor supports because this pipeline is sitting right in, on the lake bed for the most part, every 75 feet. And there have been missing anchor supports, up to 400 feet gaps, and many of them. And that's not a surprise because the current in the Straits, it's like a washing machine. It's very strong. It goes back and forth. And that affects, the movement of the pipeline too, and those anchor supports.
So with that, David Holtz with us here on the Megacast, spokesperson for Oil and Water Don't Mix. I did catch a little bit of some of the testimony before some of the Michigan lawmakers, people from the industry that work on the pipeline. Their argument was this could take a lot of jobs away from the state of Michigan. Your thoughts on that? Well,
when you consider what the biggest risk in terms of jobs are for that Line 5, it's the pipeline rupture, because that would really be disruptive to the major tourism industry, shipping industry, and that would be the biggest jobs hit. What some of the arguments is that they want to replace Line 5, and there would be jobs associated with replacing Line 5. And that's kind of the major motivator for the jobs argument isn't really there are some jobs connected to operating and maintaining pipelines, but I think the big jobs case that folks who are aligned with Enbridge are making is that they want to build a tunnel in the Straits of Mackinac.
In your estimate, is that even feasible? How long would it take? Because I believe, didn't they make a deal with former Governor Snyder?
Well, they made a deal, but it was a pretty open-ended deal from the state standpoint. In other words, it set no deadline for constructing the tunnel. It doesn't actually require Enbridge to construct the tunnel. It just guaranteed Enbridge the right to operate Line 5 if a tunnel was constructed. So individuals, originally Enbridge estimated this would be a $500 million tunnel project, and it would take 7 years and then to construct. And then they later said it's now $1 million tunnel project, and they cut the time in half on how long it would take to be constructed. But independent tunnel experts that have looked at it, they're really concerned that it could take up to a decade, and that's assuming that all the approval, the permits and lawsuits and everything don't extend that timeline further. Meanwhile, and this is the major thing that we're trying to communicate to folks, is every day that existing pipeline is sitting in the Straits of Mackinac is a day that we're risking Michigan's environment and economy.
David Holtz with us here on the Megacast. And Dave, if I can ask you, what about the relationship between Canada and Michigan? Is this going to put a strain on that relationship, do you think?
You know, I think it's too soon to tell from this standpoint. This is not the first quote unquote trade issue that has separated Canada and the United States and Michigan. And we've maintained a strong relationship with our neighbors to the north, both on an individual personal level and in between governments. So I think it's unlikely that this would seriously undermine it. And I say that for one reason. I say that is the Canadian government has said itself as recently as last week that when Line 5 is shut down, it does have alternatives to get energy that people in Ontario and Quebec need. So it won't create the kind of disruption that Enbridge likes to say. It will definitely disrupt Enbridge's profits because they would no longer be making money off of Line 5. But that's not the same as Canadian energy sources being disrupted.
Well, it's great that you and your team are really bringing awareness to this issue, because we know sometimes when it's not front and center, it's easy for people to forget about until that disaster does in fact happen. And so with that, we're talking with David Holtz. He's a spokesperson for the Oil and Water Don't Mix organization. How can people find out more about your effort and how can they get involved?
Well, it's pretty easy if you have the internet, which I don't today. but oilandwaterdon'tmix.org, spelled out, oilandwaterdon'tmix.org. There are places there for people to get involved, to support us financially. We don't have, Enbridge is spending upwards of $1 million on paid advertising. Our budget doesn't even cover a day's worth of their advertising. So we could use all the help we could get.
Really? Because you're a grassroots effort.
It is. It's, what's amazing is I've been active in Michigan environment and politics for a good deal of my life, and in environmental work for most of that time. This is the most biggest environmental citizens movement I've been connected with in all that time. And I think you'd have to go back to the 70s when we adopted the bottle bill to really come to have anything that approaches the kind of involvement from the numbers of people that we have. And I say the backbone of that involvement have been the 5 Michigan Native American tribes that have treaty rights to the Straits of Mackinac, whose economies are directly tied to commercial fishing there, that have been the backbone of engagement.
So with that, Dave Tuga, if I can ask you, because we do know one thing throughout the pandemic, people have been outdoors in the state of Michigan, exploring the state of Michigan more so than ever. And a lot of that has put a new focus on appreciating our environment. Do you think because of the COVID-19 and this crisis and people understanding more about the state of Michigan and our diversity and our environment that could help bring awareness to this issue?
Well, there's no question that more people have had the opportunity and motivation to see the beauty of Michigan in the Upper Peninsula and Northern Michigan in particular. I mean, I was there in the UP about a year ago, and it was clear that a lot of people were getting out. They were going places, seeing things that, Michigan's unrivaled as a Great Lakes state in terms of beauty. And I know that, people ask me, how can we confront a mega billion-dollar industry like the oil industry? And the answer is pretty simple. If you come to Michigan, you know that people here have a personal relationship with the Great Lakes. They understand it in ways that if you don't live here, you might not.
David Holtz with us here on the Megacast. Oil and water don't mix. With that, Dave, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we let you go?
Just that I think people should know that this is an issue that is going to probably be in front of people for most of the summer. So there's plenty of opportunity to get involved, to learn more about it. And if there's anything I'd ask of folks is just educate yourself more about Line 5 and the threat. And you can do that by going to oilandwaterdon'tmix.org.
And like you said, you have a big challenge ahead of you because the commercials have been running. So no, anytime you see the commercials, there are two sides. And, well, Dave, we always appreciate your time. Thank you again for taking time to be with us. And we hope you get your internet back soon.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Okay, again, oil and water don't mix. You can go to the website. They have a petition you can sign. And also you can find out more if you want to get involved and the work that they are doing. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the next hour of the show. And when we come back, we're going to be sticking with issues surrounding our environment and talking about recycling. That's next here on the Megacast.
89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV present the 49th Annual Michigan Week Community Awards Ceremony. Live on Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. on Civic Center TV, 89.3 Lakes FM, and the Facebook pages of a number of community partners. Join us as we celebrate those who have provided their expertise, assistance, and care throughout the pandemic in order to help our greater West Bloomfield community. The 49th Annual Michigan Week Community Awards Ceremony is live May 19th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Media that's close to home.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH, 88.1 Bloomfield Hills. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studio. Mr. Tyler Keith holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. We'll go ahead and jump into the second hour of the Megacast. And we were just talking about the Great Lakes and protecting the environment. Recycling has become so important, especially, I will say, during the pandemic. We understood as we all had the bottles piling up in our garages, says we were unable to recycle for a few months. But now those recycling centers are back open. But did you know we actually don't do that well recycling here in the state of Michigan? Our number's around 15% on the residential side. And there is an effort underway to try to improve Michigan's recycling. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Kerrin O'Brien. She's the executive director for Michigan Recycling Coalition. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Ronnie. Thank you for having me.
I was really surprised when I saw that number, 15%.
Yeah, it's actually increased over the past few years. It is now 18%. But compared to our Great Lakes partners, we're not doing so great. And frankly, the national recycling rate is about 35% right now. So we've got some catching up to do.
So why is it, do you believe, that Michigan lags so far behind?
You know, in simple terms, it's because we haven't invested in it as a state. And the more, I guess the higher recycling rates really do kind of center around those states that have made financial investments in the systems that allow us to capture the value of the materials that are already circulating in our economy.
So we do know that a lot of times, too, people that do recycle don't recycle properly. So what is it that you hope to do, and how can we get there?
Yeah, so the thing about recycling in Michigan is that it really grew up community by community. It didn't grow up, or it wasn't a state initiative that was given to communities and mandated that they do anything. It was really community by community deciding that, you know, waste is a problem for them, and they want to find and provide their residents and their businesses with a solution. So we've got all these kind of independent recycling operations, and nothing kind of comprehensive that pulls them all together. So very simply, for your average listener, it really is a matter of paying attention to that one sheet of paper or that one website where they tell you what can go in your bin and what cannot go in your bin.
And so many of us never even take the time to kind of look at that. I do know, I remember living in other states, and it was the law that you had to recycle so much of your trash each and every week. And if you didn't, you could face a fine.
Yeah, and Michigan's really not that way. That's not, I think, how we're born and how we're managed. You know, what it really comes down to is incentivizing and making it easy for residents and businesses to participate in programs that we put in place. There really are economic advantages to recycling, and that's what we have to focus on. You know, we pay for the service of having our garbage picked up at the curb every week. And so, you know, we should be okay with paying for the service to have our recycling picked up. The garbage is sent to a landfill, and those landfills cost us really into perpetuity because we have to monitor them and make sure they, you know, the integrity of that landfill is maintained. With recycling, we have to process those materials, separate them out into their commodity streams, consolidate or bale that material, generate truckloads full so that we can send those off to manufacturers that can turn those into something. But that that way of managing our materials is much more productive for our economy and our environment, and that's why we do the work we do.
Kerrin O'Brien with us here on the Megacast. She's the Executive Director for Michigan Recycling Coalition. And with that, Kerrin, can I ask about the bottle deposit return? Has that helped overall in the state of Michigan? It's been in place since the 70s. And I think throughout COVID and the beginning, when we saw that backlog, we really saw how important it was to be able to recycle some of these materials.
Yeah, so the bottle bill is really a 40-year-old law, and really that law hasn't changed because I think you have people that are against the bottle bill and you have people for the bottle bill, and because it was a citizen referendum and a citizen-initiated law, it would take 3/4 of a majority of the legislature to change that law, and so we haven't seen any changes to that law in 40 years. So it was very helpful, continues to be very helpful, but it was put in place as a litter kind of prevention strategy. And as the value of the dime decreases, it makes it a little bit harder to get that material. But, those materials are competed for on an international basis. They're high quality, separated materials that are used in manufacturing. So that became kind of the foundation of recycling programs. But when you think about it, the bottle bill only accounts for 2% of our waste stream. And what we really need to get to is far beyond 2%. We need to get to 45 and 50% of our waste stream. And that's going to take policy change. And we're embroiled in that right now.
And with that, I believe there was an effort underway that started back in 2012?
Oh, yes.
What do you feel like needs to be done and why isn't it getting done?
Yeah. And so, we've been really trying to make these policy changes for probably even longer than, the 10 years or that we're talking about. We've really been talking about these changes for a very long time. We got good partnership with the then Governor Snyder and worked through his administration to really identify kind of two paths that we needed to accomplish, and that was funding for recycling and also policy change for recycling. And when it came time to get done what needed to get done, we focused on funding under his administration. And in 2018, we did pass what we call the Renew Fund, and that makes $24 million available annually for oversight of these kind of recycling and productive materials management programs, and also helping counties to plan for solid waste and put the infrastructure and develop the markets necessary to really absorb these materials back into the economy. So the funding has helped us achieve that 3% growth on our recycling rate. But the policy change has been a little bit harder to get. COVID certainly didn't make that any easier. But this very large 8-bill package that's over 200 pages did pass the House of Representatives in April, and it has been passed on to the Senate. And we hope that the Senate is going to take that up this year, maybe in the fall, and it would really update the way we think about our waste, waste as assets of a community rather than a burden of a community. So it would reinstitute planning. So counties would have to engage townships, municipalities, and any service providers in answering the questions for that community about how they could more successfully and productively manage all of those materials.
So when we're looking at this, are you looking at it from more businesses need to be better at recycling, or is this more just households?
because it's the state, I think we are really focused on, assuring that all residents in Michigan have access to recycling opportunities, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Once that's in place, that kind of raises the tide for all boats. It makes it easier for businesses to recycle. It provides them with the resources they need to meet their own sustainability goals, because we have systems in place. Because recycling grew up, kind of independently, these programs grew up independently, it's time to connect those programs in meaningful ways to really benefit from economies of scale and getting the most out of the capacity of the infrastructure in place, or finding those gaps and filling those with, new infrastructure that helps to connect all the stakeholders to, get that material to the market. Right now, Michigan's solid waste law is really completely focused on ensuring every county has the capacity to dispose of 100% of its waste. And if a county can't demonstrate that it has like 5.5 years of disposal capacity, current policy says you've got to make way for new disposal capacity. And so what we've been focusing on is making sure and growing disposal capacity, which has decreased the value of our disposal capacity and made it really cheap to dispose of waste in Michigan. It means we're attracting waste from out of state. It means that recycling and composting and other management methodologies can't really compete when it's so cheap to landfill. So this policy would really kind of change that structure to take away the policy preference we have for landfilling.
Kerrin O'Brien with us here on the Megacast. She's the executive director for the Michigan Recycling Coalition. And with that, Kerrin, if I can ask you, if there is money to be made in recycling, why aren't businesses getting more involved in this? Why is this a policy issue with lawmakers and taxpayers?
Yeah, so it's really twofold. It is a policy issue because our current policies favor disposal. And if we can level the playing field, then those other methodologies can compete. And I think we'll be seeing more movement toward recycling. Much of our recycling programs really grew because China and the international demand was so high for this material. And the Chinese government, we frankly were sending our lowest quality recyclables to China to get them recycled. Many domestic businesses value and demanded the highest quality materials we can produce. Procter & Gamble, for instance, is an Ohio company, and we've got 3 companies in Michigan that buy material, process material, and create containers, all for Procter & Gamble, made from recycled material. We've got a company up north that takes milk cartons and takes the fiber from those milk cartons and makes commercial grade toilet paper. So there are businesses like this all over the country. We need to incentivize these businesses to grow within our community to take up this material. And when it was all going to China and wherever it wasn't an issue, then these kinds of investments didn't have to be made. Now we've got the means to do it. We will have the policy to do it. And I think we'll be growing these businesses over time.
Well, it'd be great to see business come out of trying to recycle some of the used tires, because I've done more than my fair share of stories about the illegally dumped tires in the city of Detroit. It is astounding.
You are so right.
Thousands and thousands, like entire houses stuffed.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And tires is a really interesting example because it's a problem for communities. It's a pestilence when mosquitoes then are harbored in these tires. And recent work at Eagle and with private sector partners are really trying to think differently and solve these problems in bigger ways. How can we put these tires back into road building, for example? Michigan has a huge road problem, and we've got all kinds of materials that could be used to rebuild those roads, to re-landscape the areas, to reduce erosion around these properties. It's just that we have to be strategic and have a vision and the leadership funding necessary to move forward. And that's what I think we're building momentum to.
So with that too, I believe it was a few years ago, there was a big dispute about Canada hauling its trash over to Michigan. Is that still an issue?
It is, and it's an issue that is not going to go away. The Interstate Commerce Clause says that we cannot really stop Canada from bringing its waste here. And they bring their waste here because our landfill costs are very, very cheap, very, very far below what Canadian landfilling costs are. And so if we can begin to level that playing field, we can change that dynamic. The other way that we could reduce Canadian trash coming here is really by banning certain materials from the landfill. And that would require them, to either also ban that material or, find somebody else that wanted to take their trash.
Kerrin O'Brien with us here on the Megacast, Executive Director for the Michigan Recycling Coalition. So you said right now the 8-bill package is in the Senate.
Correct.
Do you anticipate it's going to pass in its entirety?
I feel very hopeful. Never in all my days have we achieved this level of consensus about a package of bills so big that we've been working on for so long. There are kind of two remaining issues, but I think we can get past those issues. And when we get past those issues, I think it's going to be easy for us to go forward. I don't think anybody sees, what we are doing as a disadvantage. Even landfill companies can benefit from managing materials in a different way, managing organics and food waste to produce compost, for instance, or building and being a part of the recycling infrastructure. So there are lots of business opportunities if landfills can maybe diversify.
So with that, Kerrin, just another minute or two here with you on the show. If I'm, me sitting in my home in Kegel Harbor, how is this going to impact me on my day-to-day living if these bills do get approved?
You're interesting in Oakland County. The southern parts of your county, you have ROSAC and SACRA. Those are two authorities in the county, multi-community authorities that work together to get the economies of scale that are needed to provide really good recycling opportunities. But I believe in the areas that you're in, you're not well served by recycling programs. Maybe you have some drop-offs available. Really, this bill would put a benchmark recycling standard in place and require communities to step up to provide recycling opportunities. If you're a certain population density, you would be able to assure those services are provided to you at a curbside level. If not, then those could be provided to you in a drop-off situation. But our goal is really to put recycling services on par with waste services.
Yeah, because we do know people like curbside. If you have to put it in your car and drive it someplace, chances are you're not going to take advantage of those services. Kerrin O'Brien with us, Executive Director for the Michigan Recycling Coalition. Anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye?
Recycling does contribute to, a better environment. It controls the litter. It makes reusable products available to manufacturers. When you recycle, pay attention to what can go in the cart and what can't. There's a lot of stuff that can be recycled, but the stuff that you're recycling curbside is a very specific set of materials. Take your plastic bags to the store, look at county websites to figure out what you can do with other materials. It's worth your time.
Well, we so appreciate your time as well. Thank you for being with us, and we wish you luck in trying to get these bills passed You guys have been at this quite some time.
Yeah, we have. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your good questions, Ronnie.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be talking Michigan Special Olympics. That's here next on the Megacast.
Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show The Splash is back on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join WWJ's Brooke Allen and the team as they cover the most interesting people, events, and projects in West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. The Splash returns at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 25th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. You can always catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. And if that's not working for you, we also make it easy. All you have to do, go on Facebook, and you can watch us live there through our Facebook page as well. This has been such a tough year for so many people, especially for our sports enthusiasts. We know that there's been so many back and forth, with so many of the high school teams and junior high schools, but there's another group of athletes that will be excited to get back in the game. Aaron Mills joins us now. He's the Senior Director for the Marketing and Communications for the Special Olympics of Michigan. Aaron, we're so happy to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've got some, as you said, it's been kind of a tough time, over the past year plus for us, but, things are looking up. So I'm excited to chat about what we got going on.
So that's great. But can we kind of start back in the beginning? What has it been like? Because there's been so many pauses and starts and pauses and starts. It's confusing for all of us.
It really is. And, for us, we have gone our last kind of state level competition that we've done. Well, first I'll back up. We've got around 20,000 children and adults with intellectual disabilities across the entire state who take part in our programming throughout the year. And so, some of them are doing things at the local level. Some of them are doing them at the state level, national, world level. And so, we have a lot of different athletes and people who really kind of rely on our programming, not just because of the love of sport, but everything else that comes along with it. And so, last 2020 of, early March, we were getting ready for our state basketball finals and we're looking at things and we're going, all right, well, I think we're going to have to pump the brakes here a little bit, And so we ended up, pausing our basketball. And then from there, obviously the world realized what was going on. And so things really kind of changed for us. Our state summer games last year were canceled for the first time ever. And, we've just kind of really had to adapt and figure out, well, how can we still provide programming for our athletes without having in person, right? And so, that's been a challenge we've had to overcome this this past year plus, and we're finally kind of getting back into the swing of things after doing a lot of virtual events and at-home trainings and, Zoom calls just to kind of get that interaction between people, just kind of hang out. And, it's been rough, but we are excited to kind of get back into the swing of things here.
So with that, how did the virtual training go?
Yeah, it was a learning experience for sure, right? Because at first we're like, okay, so how are we going to reach as many people as possible? And so, our sports team came up with a great game plan of, we recorded videos on making sure that we were, here's how you can do a 100-meter dash in your yard. Here's how you can do, a Frisbee toss or, basketball drills or, different events that we could come up with, and then adapting them for the fall. We're going to do flag football stuff, or we're going to do soccer drills in between cones, and just coming up with different ways to make sure that our athletes are staying active. Because, for a lot of our population, Special Olympics, so we're a sports organization first, but really we use sports as a vehicle for change throughout the communities, for our athletes' lives, and really pushing the message of inclusion everywhere. And so, yeah, it stinks that we weren't able to do sports, but using sports is, like I said, just the vehicle to helping provide that change. And, our athletes really got hit hard with this whole, isolation, not getting to be a part of everything. And I will say one, not necessarily good thing, but one more relatable thing that came out of this whole, during the height of the pandemic is that, when everyone's at home and they're saying, I'm bummed out, I can't, see my family or my friends, or I'm not working daily interaction with my coworkers, you're feeling that loneliness and that isolation. That's really, everyday life for a lot of our athletes. And so, Special Olympics gives them a chance to get out of that and be a part of society and show everybody that they're a part of normal society. And, they should be looked at it for their abilities and not their disabilities. And, it really kind of gave a lot of people some inward looking perspective on, kind of being able to relate to our athletes a little better.
And so with that, I see that in-person sports is going to be resuming, or it actually did on May 3rd. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's one of those things where we're kind of taking it a little bit at a time. So the state, we break the state down into like 36 little area programs across the state, almost like school districts would be broken down throughout the state. And so everybody's different on how fast they're getting back to it, or how, ready they are to do different sports. And so, it'll, maybe in the Western UP, maybe they're a little more ready to go than somebody in downtown Detroit or somewhere else where maybe it's a little higher population and there's a little slower to get back with the COVID numbers, kind of depending on how things are. So, we're taking things a little bit at a time, but, we have some local programs who have been practicing, they're getting ready to get back to it. And, we have on our calendar that mid-July, we're going to have a track and field event at Central Michigan University. We're going to have a bocce event at 3 or 4 different locations across the state. So, we're working hard to make sure we have a safe game plan that when we do get back into competing in person, that we're doing so safely as well.
Aaron Mills with us here on the Megacast. He's with Special Olympics in Michigan. And Aaron, this has been hard for us to try to figure out to wear a mask, don't wear a mask, get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. How has it been, or what's it been like for your team members to try to relay this message to your athletes, because it's changing all the time?
Yeah, and it's been hard. We've had a handful of key volunteers and athletes who have contracted COVID, some that have passed away due to COVID. And so, while we can't require people to be vaccinated if they're going to compete or be volunteers, we do strongly encourage it, just to kind of, help make things as safe as possible for people. And, it's really just kind of getting that information out to people just so they understand it, just so they better understand to be able to make that choice of what, they want to do. Because, some of our athletes are, they're in group homes, or they're, out on their own, or they might not have a lot of interaction, or they might not be tech savvy. And so it's just making sure that they've got, the proper unbiased information that they can kind of help make those choices for themselves moving forward.
I anticipate this year is going to be so exciting as we emerge out of the pandemic. And obviously we do know now, some of the restrictions are starting to loosen, especially around sports. It's going to be an exciting year for your athletes.
It is, I've had a number of the past year, the amount of Facebook messages and text messages and daily and weekly phone calls I get from our athletes has just gone up astronomically. And one, it's great to continue to chat with them, but two, it's great to know that they're still so psyched to get back to it. Because, as a staff, we've got around 35, 40 paid staff, plus, thousands of volunteers across the state that make this entire organization function. And we're ready. Like, we've been planning, we are ready so that when, July comes around and, these kind of slower sections as we're getting ready to get back into the return to activities, that when the time comes and we are ready to get back to it, we're going to make sure that our athletes are going to be able to pick right back up where they left off and have an amazing time.
Because it really is about community and that interaction, being around people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I came to Special Olympics 8 years ago. I kind of knew what Special Olympics was, but I didn't know what Special Olympics was. It's one of those things where you know what it is, but you don't really know what it is until you get there, right? And it's just kind of being a part of one of those very first events that you show up to as a volunteer, just as a spectator, and you see it and you just go, oh, I get it. I am in. And so, it just takes one time to get hooked. And, we're a grassroots organization. Like I said, we've got 35, 40 staff to help put on programming for 20,000 athletes. And so we can't do it on our own. And so, we rely heavily on our volunteers and that's an extremely important part of it. And again, it's one of those where we need to make sure our athletes are safe. And our volunteers, we need to make sure that they feel safe coming back too. So it's a little juggling effort, but one thing I will say that has been very helpful throughout all this is all of our donors, going from individual donors to companies and organizations who have been with us for years. They've been supporting us throughout the pandemic. They didn't just go, oh, you're not doing summer games this year. Oh, you're not doing basketball finals this year. I'm out. Is one of those where people believe in the mission and they know that, if they're supporting it now, they're making sure that we will be ready to go when it's game time, and it's about game time.
That is so great to hear. And with that too, you mentioned volunteers. How are you doing on that front? We will see. That's the question, right? So it's one of those where at first we're going to be a little limited on the amount of volunteers we can have come back. So, normally a state summer games would have 3,000 athletes and 3,000 volunteers, and it'd be a multi-day event, and we'd have opening ceremonies. It'd be the craziest thing you've ever seen. But so it's going to be a lot smaller scale this year. It'll probably just be, 100, couple hundred athletes and limited volunteers in those ranges, where we'll probably rely on some of those more veteran volunteers, just kind of get them back. But, the volunteer need will be there for sure, because, if we realize, we have enough athletes that want to play soccer this year and we don't have people that can coach soccer or referee soccer, well, then we can't have soccer. So Aaron Mills with us here on the Megacast. He's the Senior Director for Marketing and Communications for Special Olympics Michigan. And tell us more about that, Aaron. What is it like behind the scenes to try to not only recognize the athletes who wants to play, but which sport they want to play, and then trying to come up with the teams?
Yep. And it really varies. You'll see a lot of local programs will kind of change their sports that they offer throughout the year. We offer 26 sports throughout the entire state during the year. And some areas will just kind of focus on a couple depending on what the interest is. And then, an area like Detroit or Grand Rapids, Metro Detroit or Grand Rapids, they'll probably be offering 26 sports where they're offering everything from skiing to, snowshoeing and basketball and swimming and kayaking and everything. And, you go up a little further north and maybe they're just kind of focused on maybe some skiing or some basketball or whatever it is. So it kind of varies across the state, but we do our best, thanks to our volunteers, to make sure that whatever sports there is a need for, that we try to do our best to make sure that we can provide that for our athletes.
So the in-person sports training has resumed in person. What is that? How does that work?
Yeah. So locally we have coaches as well as some kind of directors who are in charge of our local programs as well. And so they reach out to the families. We have to, just like a high school sport, we make sure that all their paperwork's up to date. They've got their up-to-date physicals and, they're completely checked out. And we're going to be, doing temperature checks and all sorts of things at practices to make sure that we're good to go. And so, it's getting rolled out, like I said, kind of slowly and at different phases across the state. And hopefully here in mid-July, we'll kind of see that come to a fruition here with some of our events, because this is actually a qualifying year for Special Olympics events to qualify for the next national games in 2022 in Orlando. And so at our event here, our track and field event in July, we'll have a number of athletes that will have a chance to qualify to compete in the national games there. We're going to be looking for a basketball team later this year. So there's a handful of things that we need to make sure we can try to get these sports going so that we can have Michigan representing at the national games next year.
Well, we need to have Michigan representing.
Yeah, for sure. We had a team from Pontiac that competed in the last USA Games that we saw, and those took place in Seattle a couple of years ago. And they got some major coverage on ESPN, and Andre Drummond, when he was on the Pistons, he got hooked up with them. He surprised them at their practice. He got them all new Nike gear. Like, it was pretty amazing. So, the fact that, we have a chance to kind of give these chances to our athletes to compete on a national stage and even a world stage is pretty mind-boggling.
That is, we love those stories. That's so great. And Erin, if I can ask, because at the top of the interview, you had mentioned the importance of inclusion. Tell us more about that, because that's really a big part of what you're about.
It really is. And, and we say that, when I'm as a marketing guy, they always ask about what's your ROI, what's your return on investment? And I tell people, well, I'm not pushing return on investment. I'm pushing the return on inclusion. I need to know what are we doing to help make Michigan better, not just for our athletes, but in our communities, just a better understanding. And that's really a message that, everybody should want to get behind. And so part of the reason we're doing that, we're doing it through our sports, but we also have a school program called Unified Champion Schools, where we're in hundreds of schools across the state. And it's an inclusive program that brings together students with and without intellectual disabilities. And, it's really changing the lives of the students from those younger ages in those K through 12 schools, just to kind of give them more experiences together so they can see the similarities between each other from an earlier age and just realize, hey, we've all got the same goals. Oh, you want to get married someday too? Oh yeah, me too. Oh, your job's kind of annoying. Well, guess what? Mine is too. Yeah. Well, we're teenagers. It's fine. Like, I get it. So it's just kind of finding that understanding between each other that really is going to help kind of push this message of inclusion across the state.
I love that, especially when we're talking about, from a young age with kids. Sometimes they're our best teachers. They really are.
Yeah, it's true. We have a young athletes program for the 2 to 7-year-olds, and it really just kind of gives those younger kids a chance. We don't separate them from 2 to 7. You can come out with or without intellectual disabilities, play together, and heck, they don't know. They're just throwing a ball back and forth or running around, and you show everybody that you're all the same at the same age when you're that young, and it really pays off as you're getting older.
So tell us more. You have a pledge, the Inclusion Pledge. Is that for everyone to sign?
Yeah, so online, we do have an inclusion pledge that people can sign to just kind of pledge that they believe in inclusion. They believe that, using derogatory terms like the R word, is not, the proper way to conduct yourself, and that you'll do everything you can to just kind of spread that message of positivity across the board. And, there are thousands of people across the state every year who are, just kind of pledging, making sure that everybody knows, yep, I do believe in this message. I'm not just saying it, but I'm living it.
I love that. Erin Mills with the Senior Director for the Marketing and Communications for Special Olympics of Michigan. Erin, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, we're excited to get back to it. I said that, and stay tuned to us because we've got some major things going on in Special Olympics. Little teaser for you. So we are getting ready to make plans to have the largest Special Olympics facility in the world in Grand Rapids. And we are also getting ready sometime in the next month or so to announce a major international tournament coming to Michigan, which will actually be the first international tournament for Special Olympics that the state has hosted since 1975. So we've got some major things in the works, and it's really going to put Michigan front and center here on spreading the word of inclusion and showing people, why we are an amazing state to live in.
Well, we so appreciate that. We'll definitely have you back on when some of those things happen. I will say, Erin, I can tell, though, that you love your job. You are just bursting with enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where before I worked at Special Olympics, I was in local TV, and I did that for about 10 years. And I love my job. It was great. But it's just one of those where it's so easy to have a passion. You really see the fruits of your labor every single day. Any little thing you do has ripple effects everywhere. And so, I feel it, our volunteers feel it. And like I said, it's one of those deals where, if you don't know what Special Olympics is, just come on out once we get our events going and you'll get it.
Well, we look forward to the return of the events. So Aaron Mills, thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Aaron Mills, he's the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications, Special Olympics of Michigan. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we will be joined with the event planner for the Royal Oak Farmers Market. That's next here on the Megacast.
Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show The Splash is back on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join WWJ's Brooke Allen and the team as they cover the most interesting people, events, and projects in West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. The Splash returns at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 25th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too. Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too. Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV present the 49th Annual Michigan Week Community Awards Ceremony. Live on Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. on Civic Center TV, 89.3 Lakes FM, and the Facebook pages of a number of community partners. Join us as we celebrate those who have provided their expertise, assistance, and care throughout the pandemic in order to help our greater West Bloomfield community. The 49th Annual Michigan Week Community Awards Ceremony is live May 19th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Media that's close to home.
With us here on the Megacast, just about 40 minutes left in the show. Just as a reminder, if you miss one of the episodes, we understand not everyone has 2 hours each and every day, Monday through Friday, to spend with us here on the show, but you can catch previous episodes by going to civiccentertv.com, click on Megacast, or if you hit the on-demand section, you can also watch some of our previous individual interviews. For so many of us, especially in the spring time, this time of year, every Saturday morning is dedicated to getting up and going to the farmers market. And we are so lucky to have so many great ones here in our area, including the Royal Oak Farmers Market, which actually started all the way back in 1925, and it's still going strong. Robin Richardson joins us now on the show. She's the event planner for the Farmers Market. Great to have you with us.
Good morning.
Robin, I have to ask, how are things going? Because I feel like first there was all the construction that was going on next to the Farmers Market, and then the pandemic hit. How are things going now?
Things are going well, and I think we managed to navigate that even during all of the challenges that we've had. The beauty of that is we are now in the middle of like the Civic Center, if you will, and they're just tearing down the old City Hall today, and it's going to be a gorgeous park. So this is going to be a really a big focal point of the city. I hope people will come and use the beautiful park and all the area around it. And as far as the pandemic, I think that if anything could come good out of it, the good part is that people are more aware of where their vegetables and fruits and foods are coming from and how they're being processed and how they're brought to market. And it's sort of given us a resurgence of people coming to the market. We've never shut down. We were always open. We took some of the things that we normally would have, like the added value things we talk about, like the garden art and things like that, and told them we weren't going to have them here, but we still had all of the farmers throughout the entire pandemic. We never closed 1 week. So we were very fortunate to be labeled as an essential business and being able to do that and still provide quality groceries for our community.
Yeah, so think back to the beginning of the pandemic where we did have the crisis in the food supply. Things are pretty much back to normal. So do you anticipate the summer is going to be busier than ever, though? Because once people got in the habit of going to the farmer's market, it kind of sticks with them.
I think, yes, that's part of it. I think people are being a little more educated on how things are grown and what they're used to grow with, and not to take away from any grocery store. But the guy you're buying the food from is the guy that grew the asparagus, and the person you're getting your eggs from is the one that collected the eggs. So, they know there was no chain of people. It literally is farm to table. And I think people are realizing the quality of what you can get here is very on point with the pricing. So I think our prices are very comparable to what you find in a grocery store, but the quality is so, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I always find the farmer's market is less expensive, but it's like you said, but I enjoy the conversations that you get to have with the growers, and they have so many great stories.
Well, they have wonderful stories. Most of our farmers are third or fourth or even fifth year generations. There's a couple of farms that have been here almost since the beginning of the market. We never close. We are year round. So that's one thing that's unique about our market, is that we are 52 weeks, where I know some of them are seasonal. But it's cute because people will call and say, do you have any watermelon? I'm like, no, it's May. I don't have watermelon in May. Because what you're getting here is grown here in Michigan by our farmers and brought to you. And it's all seasonal, it's all in season, and it's all delicious because of that.
And so with that too, Robin, can you tell us a little bit more about the farmers? How have they been doing throughout this pandemic? Is there a little bit of a competition with the farmers markets to get certain people at each market? Do they have enough employees to support that? Well,
I think the farmers market is, the farmers that are here, I think, have everyone's struggling for employees. Let's face that, everyone's struggling for employees. But I think most of our farmers it's more like a family than it is an employee. They have people that have worked for them for years. Their children are now working for them. So I have a farmer who just asked if my daughter, who just turned 13, will come help him sell vegetables on the weekend. So it really is a family atmosphere. And so I think because of that, we are a little bit, we're not quite as desperate as finding people, but everyone's always looking for good quality people. And there's many of the farmers that are looking here to hire if you are willing to work the season.
And so with that too, Robin, we're speaking with Robin Richardson. She's the event planner over at the Royal Oak Farmers Market. For most of the farmers, are they somewhat local to the Metro Detroit area, or do they come? How far away do they typically come?
Well, to be a farmer here, you have to grow. Your farm has to be in Michigan. Most of them are from like the Armada and Romeo. There's a few out of the Ann Arbor area. Belleville, a couple of our greenhouses, but you have to be a Michigan farmer to sell at the Royal Oak Farms Market.
So that I remember last year around this time trying to find flowers and plants, and they were a little bit scarce. Hopefully this year, how is the supply looking when it comes to flowers this year here in Michigan?
They're looking great. And I have to give credit to the city of Royal Oak because there was a lot of controversy last year about who and how and what you could sell and what was deemed essential and what was not deemed essential. And a lot of the agricultural department and the CDC were telling us what we could and couldn't do. And the city took a bold stance and said, I think plants of flowers and beautiful baskets of flowers, that might be essential to your mental health in all of what we're dealing with. And they were really open about letting us in a very safe way, because at that point in time, we didn't realize that it wasn't through touch that that things were transmitted. They let us do that. And I think it was a really good idea. It was a really good choice. Farmers, of course, benefited from that, but so did our community. And this year, we have farmers that are close to selling out by a couple hours in the morning on certain things because people are really ready to get going. I think with the warmer weather now, people are just ready to go. And these guys are bringing in plants that are gorgeous, just gorgeous. We have cut flowers, we have flats of flowers, potted plants, patio plants. You can buy, if you're in an apartment or a condo, you can still grow cucumbers and tomatoes because they've taken that into consideration. So a lot of good stuff. And also, the prices here are incredible. The flats of flowers start at like $10 a flat or 2 for $18. That's a pretty good price.
That's a really good price. Robin Richardson with us here on the Megacast. And Robin, with that as well, we know that the state did drop the mask mandate this past weekend for people who are fully vaccinated. What is the status there at the market? This is confusing for everyone, right?
I think it's confusing for everyone. And until we have some clarification from what the city wants to do, because wrong or right, we're owned by the city and we take our charge from the city. So we have not heard yet. I'm assuming that's going to happen at some point today of what our mandate is. I know that this weekend we did ask people to still have their masks on in the building. And for the most part, people are really good about that. They understand. You see sometimes people with little children trying to put their mask up over their nose, and it's adorable, but it's like, it's okay. We know this is, hopefully this is going away shortly. We're starting to do events again, starting to book weddings again. So, and people still have those questions of like, how can I put my tables and how can do I have to have my masks on? So I'm sure it'll keep evolving, but as it stands right now, we're still asking indoors to wear a mask. Outside, we have a little more flexibility. And I'm assuming that will continue to change, just like everyone else is dealing with what to do next. I know that they said something this morning that President Biden was coming on to clarify that for all of us. So hopefully we'll have some answers. But yes, we're trying to just do our best to, keep everyone as safe as possible and still be able to provide a really valuable place for people to shop.
So you had also mentioned weddings, and we know a lot of people last year pushed their weddings to this year. So when it comes to actually renting out the market for weddings, are you guys pretty booked in that area?
We're getting there. That's another thing I have to give credit to the city. They were very gracious about giving back deposits or moving deposits. And we had brides in tears because they were booked other places that weren't allowing them to have their deposit back, but weren't allowing them to do their events. So it was sort of a no-win situation. But the city has worked with every group. If you weren't comfortable doing your event, they were, and we could do it under the guidelines, they were still reasonable about what they could refund. So I think people are starting. We had a celebration of life party on Saturday, which was something we've never done before, but it was someone who passed away and they wanted to just have a party. And it was, they talked about all the wonderful things that this person did. And it was just a lot of people here, a fair amount of people, I should say, having a really nice time with their family again. So it was good to see it. It kind of felt like old times. So we are booking a lot of events. We're booking a lot of weddings, and we're hoping for the best here.
So one of the other great things that goes on at the market, I don't know how many people really know the antique market on Sundays.
Right.
It's like a hidden gem.
It really is. And that's another thing, that those vendors have been here for a very long time. And they have a lot of established customers, but then you'll have all these people that are new to Royal Oak coming in and seeing what's going on. And they have lots of good stuff. Anywhere you name it, it's here. It could be jewelry, it's just clothing, collectibles, lots of good stuff. Every Sunday we do that from 8 to 3.
Now, has that continued throughout the pandemic?
That was closed down for, I think it closed down for about 4 months. And then we opened, but both for the farmer's market and the antique market, we've rearranged our floor plan, where we were down to about half of the amount of vendors that we normally have, just to give them some space and to bring out extra space inside their booths, so that when you were walking into it, you still could social distance. We have started to add a few more now that things have let up a little. And I'm assuming that at some point we will be back to full capacity, but there's still about 50 vendors on any given Sunday.
And so with that, again, we're talking with Robin Richardson. She's the event planner for the Royal Oak Farmers Market. A few years ago, I remember going to one of the food truck rallies, which is always a great event. Is that going to start back up?
It has started back up in April, and we have revamped that as well. That's one thing I said, and we say all the time, like, you didn't realize how creative you could be until you had to be creative. But we used to do it indoors and outdoors as far as where the trucks were. And now we have all the trucks outside and all the seating inside and outside. So now the entire building is seating, and the tables are spread out. We have 2 or 3 staff that work, and basically what they're doing is just keeping things cleaned up. And so we still have a truck rally every second Wednesday from 5 to 9. And last month was wonderful. We had some great new trucks, and we had a really good crowd. This coming rally on June 9th, we're looking to book a full-blown band. We normally have one guy with live music who's wonderful, but we thought we'd switch it up a little and bring a band on. So I think it's going to be Full Tilt Boogie, which is they play about anything. So there's live entertainment, there's great food, there's places that your kids can just run and have fun, probably pull out that sidewalk chalk at some point. And we're just trying to kind of, like everyone says, get back to a little bit of normal.
We are so looking forward to it. Robin Richardson with us here. Just another minute or two with you here on the show. If someone hasn't been to the market since the pandemic, if they're coming down for the first time, what do you want them to know? What changes, but also just parking can get a little confusing there as well.
Well, I will tell you that parking has really eased up. Now that the City Hall and the police station are finished, there is almost as much. We used to have about 400 spaces outside, right surrounding the building. We're back to almost that. And there's a beautiful, brand new, well-lit parking structure about a half a block from us. So there is plenty of parking. There's fantastic finds. You can do all your grocery shopping here. There's meat, cheese, eggs, vegetables, flowers. Sundays are great. Just walk through and have some fun, and then look on our website, because we always have something going on, especially on our Facebook pages when we really push what we're doing. But in between a food truck rally, or we have a Bogey Fest coming up, and there's a lot of things that are happening again. And we try to do our very best to make sure it's a very safe environment, but we're moving forward to starting to have a little fun again.
You have some great organic farmers there.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. We have Senzori Farms, which is one of our largest farmers. They also are one of the biggest suppliers of Whole Foods. And we have Lake Divide, which is just a small family, but they do some fantastic things. We have farmers that are growing in hoop houses, which means they're not necessarily organic, but they don't spray with anything. So all of their greens and everything nothing's been sprayed on them at all. We've got we have one farmer here that grows in a shipping container. So it's all hydroponic. So there's vegan, there's gluten-free, there's paleo, there's keto. We've got a fudge guy that makes keto-friendly fudge. So you can find it here. We have a fish guy that's bringing in Mackinac fishmongers. They're bringing in fish that they caught on Friday and selling to you on Saturday. So, I mean, it doesn't get any fresher. It doesn't get any better than that.
With that, before we let you go, do you have capacity limits?
Well, our capacity in the market is like 1,000 people. So, I mean, if we were at capacity, so we, you know, it can get busy in here, but it's an open air market as well. There's large roll up doors. It's indoors and outdoors. So, there's 20-foot ceilings. So we have, you know, plenty of space to move around and plenty of space we have parts if you need that. We have roadside pickup if you need help getting things into your car. So we have lots of good things going on here. I would suggest anyone that lives anywhere near here to take a ride over on a Saturday or Sunday.
Absolutely. Robin Richardson with us. She's the event planner for the Royal Oak Farmers Market. We appreciate your time and we appreciate everyone tuning in to the Monday edition of the Megacast. We will be back again Tuesday bright and early, 10 a.m. This has been the Megacast.